Welcome to this meeting of the Plans Committee on Thursday, the 5th of March 2026 for Charnwood Borough Council. Please could I ask everyone present to turn off your mobile phones or switch them to silent. May I remind all those present that this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel and that by attending the meeting you are giving your consent to be filmed. A notice with further information has been provided in the public gallery. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may also film or record this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. May I remind members of the public to be considerate of the committee and officers throughout the meeting and to remain quiet unless you are a registered speaker as part of the allocated public speaking slots. While the Plans Committee is a meeting in public, it is not a public meeting. The only contributions from members of the public are those through those registered to speak as part of the formal speaking arrangements. Any contributions or disruption from the public gallery outside the formal speaking arrangements, whether, for example, by speaking or applauding in reaction to any contributions from officers, members of the committee or public speakers, is unacceptable and may lead to the adjournment of the meeting and members of the public being asked to leave. For the benefit of those watching the live stream and members of the public here this evening, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Councillor Lenny, Chair of the Plans Committee. Other members joining us on the Plans Committee this evening are Councillor Corey Lowesley, who is my Vice Chair, Councillor Bellamy, Councillor Boker, Councillor Fryer, Councillor Good, Councillor Granger, Councillor Haji Nicolau, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Seaton and Councillor Smidovic. The planning officers present this evening are Mr Ward and Mr Spring. Our lead officer for the evening is Mr Upton, and our Democratic Services officer is Ms Dobson, who is just there. I would also like to welcome Mr Gill, our legal advisor for the evening. For those watching the live stream, the planning officer presentation has been published if you wish to view it and can be found on the agenda for the 5th of March 2026. Could I ask that members of the committee use their microphones every time they want to speak and to ensure that viewers of the live stream and recording can hear the discussion? Speakers will be called forward at the appropriate time and will have 3 minutes to speak. When 1 minute of time is remaining, they will be advised by the Democratic Services Officer, Ms Dobson. So we go to the agenda. Item 1 is apologies. Ms Dobson, have we received any apologies?
I confirm we've received apologies from Councillor Infield and Councillor Bellamy will be substitute.
Thank you. Item 2 is minutes of the previous meeting. Is the committee happy to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of February 2026? Can you please raise your hands? Any against or any amendments to bring forward? Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting have been confirmed as a correct record and I'll sign them at the end of the meeting. Questions under committee procedure 12.8. Ms Dobson, have we received any questions?
I confirm no questions have been received.
Thank you. The next item is disclosures of pecuniary and personal interests. For information, disclosable pecuniary interests and registrable interests relate to entries that are included or should be included on a councillor's register of interests. Non-registrable interests relate to any other matters. Ms Dobson, have we received any disclosures of interests?
I confirm I've not received any disclosures in advance of the meeting.
Are there any disclosures disclosures of interest members wish to make? Councillor Seaton.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to declare two bits of interest, please, for B22/2109/2 and P/23/0932/2. Both for Bellway Homes, one for south of Barkby and one for the sake of argument, they've took the address of 1 Brackenfield Way, which is on Barkby Thorpe Lane in Thurmaston. I have commented on both of these. I have put written comments in, but I am attending today with an open mind. Thank you.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 3 on the agenda, I am one of the speakers to that application, so I shall be moving into the off the planning board table into the public gallery when we reach that item.
Thank you, Councillor Fryer. Any more? Right, so we'll go on to item 5, which is the planning applications. The first one is item 5A, number P/22/2109/2, land north of Barkby Thorpe Lane, Thurmaston. I would like to refer to our planning officer, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So the application, as you can see, has a 2022 reference number toward the end of 2022. So it's been with us for a little bit of time, and it seeks permission, outline permission, for the erection of up to 130 dwellings, with all matters reserved except access. This site forms part of allocation HA7. You can see on an extract from the policies map where HA7 sits in its context. It's bisected by that pink shading, and the pink shading on the policies map relates to the Thorpe development. And I'll talk a little bit more about the part of the pink that runs between the two halves of HA7 as I go through the presentation. This application relates to the southern part of HA7, and the second application on the agenda, item 5B, relates to the northern part. So some of what I will speak about in this presentation will be common to both, and I'll abbreviate the second presentation and give you all the info on this one. So the indicative diagram within the local plan has darker coloured orange blobs to the south and to the north, and the policy text talks about restricting built development to the northwest and southeastern corners of the allocation in those darker shaded areas. And part of the reason for that is to help maintain the separation between Thurmaston and Syston and the separate identities of the two settlements. The policy also says that before permission is granted, a master plan for the entire allocation should be agreed, and a development brief should set out how cohesive development can be ensured between the two parts of the allocation. So in its context again, Barkby Thorpe Lane is the road from which the access is taken, and you can see where it is in relation to Thurmaston Shopping Centre, the Asda store, Roundhill Academy, and you'll see the yellow buses on the plan which indicate where the nearest bus stops are. The closest bus stop is the one on Highfield Road, and it's on the same route as the one between the Asda and the shopping centre, with regular buses at about half-hourly intervals throughout the day, which serve the route as kind of a loop, a P-shaped loop, if you like, which takes travellers into the centre of Leicester and back again. So this is the first application site, the one we're talking about now, and that's the second application site, which we'll talk about in hopefully about 20 minutes. So the site is relatively flat, as you can see. It's bounded by hedgerows on all four sides, although the side on the right, which is the eastern side of the site, is also defined by a fence separating the land from the railway line, from the Midland Main Line railway line. The hedges to the rear of that photograph, which is to the northern site boundary, and to the west, which is sort of to the top of the photograph, are both fairly thin. There isn't much substance to them, but they're retained. The site's boundaries is wholly within the field boundary. Then looking at the site from the railway bridge, there's a railway bridge on Barkby Thorpe Lane, which crosses that Midland main line that I spoke about. That view is a bit long and thin, but you can just about see the road toward Thurmaston and the sort of flatness of the site. It's not quite flat. There's about a 6 metre gradient from its highest point nearest Thurmaston to its lowest point, which is on the northern boundary. The access is to be just a little bit west of Brackenfield Way, sorry. And the photograph on the bottom right is looking back toward the site from Thurmaston side, and you can see the entrance to Inglenook Mobile Home Park on the left. So we saw in the pink shading earlier on the policies map that Thorpebury is adjacent to this site. So Thorpebury is the big sort of grey mass you can see on the right-hand side of that image. The two application sites are in red. And the pink area between that runs between the sites is intended to serve the Northern Link Road, which will ultimately be built to serve the Thorpebury development. That road is to be built between the delivery of house number 2000 and house number 3000 on Thorpebury. So it's a little while away. It's probably, I would say, at least 5 years away, maybe longer. But it's provided for, and development shouldn't interfere with the delivery of that road, which would have the potential to interfere with the delivery of Thorpebury if it were permitted. One of the things that has delayed the consideration of this application is officers ensuring that that link road can be delivered, that it's physically possible to deliver the road between the two application sites. And the diagram on the right is an engineering drawing. It's part of a set of engineering information that was provided by the applicant, which demonstrates to our satisfaction that the road can be delivered. The crossing over the railway line, of course, has to be high enough to clear the trains passing beneath. So the road is elevated on that side, hence the width of the green embankments north and south of the road alignment. And those embankments will not only serve to support the road in its elevated position, but will also create a visual separation between the two settlements, north and south. The development brief I mentioned is a requirement, and the development brief for the entirety of the allocation is sort of subdivided into those four sections. Something about the site context, a bit of a vision for the two parts of the developed allocation, or to be developed allocation, a series of design parameters, and a section on phasing and delivery. The parameters are discussed in narrative, and they're illustrated then in those 6 diagrams. And I'll draw your attention in particular to the green one, the nature, the one labeled nature. And you can see the bits of built development on the northwest and southeast parts of the allocation as described in the policy text. And you can see as well the large area of green, which is to the sort of west of the current application site, the one we're considering now, and to the north of Inglenook Caravan or Mobile Home Park. And the ground is flatter in that part of the site, or on the elevated road that I mentioned. The link road will be lower at that part of the site. So the maintenance of the separate identities of the two settlements is achieved on the western side by distance, by separation distance, and by the retention of the existing mature treed hedge line that you can see running east-west in the middle of that green area. But all of these parameter plans and that development brief in whole are proposed to be conditioned so that this development brief will guide the future applications that might come forward on this site. So zooming in a little bit, this is the illustrative master plan for the two sites combined, and you can see the different components there. The two applications, the retained agricultural land. There's a proposed pedestrian link connecting the two, but that's not before you tonight. there's a planting buffer then on the northern boundary of the application site that we're considering now. And then north of that planting buffer will be, eventually when the link road is built, there will be these embankments which are up to 7 meters high at the point at which they adjoin the railway line. And those would be overplanted as well, one would expect in due course. But again, they're not before you tonight. So the illustrative layout for the site then, the main job of an illustrative layout on an outline application like this, where you're only being asked to consider the principle and the access in detail, the main job of this illustrative layout is to demonstrate to us that that the up to 130 dwellings, as it is in this case, can be accommodated within the site, having taken account of the different constraints involved, such as the need to provide open space, the need to deal with the noise issues arising from the railway line, play spaces, suds, etc. So having considered the provision of all of those additional elements of development, we're satisfied that the up to 130 dwellings can be delivered on this site. So the one bit of the site that you've been asked to consider in full tonight is the access. So the access is proposed just west of Brackenfield Way, where you can see on the right-hand side of that plan, with a 3 metre wide footpath extending from there westward to the edge of Inglenook Park. You can also see another little sort of jut northward off that footpath, which is another 3 metre wide footpath and footpath and cycle path combined, which would serve the site. And almost directly opposite that is a zebra crossing, which would take pedestrians to the continuing footpath. The footpath continues on the south side of Barkby Thorpe Lane, as far as Thurmerson Shopping Centre, and as far as the Asda roundabout, but anyone visiting Asda would have to cross back, would have to cross the road from the site and then cross back. There is no practicable route to take pedestrians along on the north side of the road. So this has been assessed by the local highway authority, who find this proposal to be satisfactory. So in the photography, that's the yellow stripe on that plan is approximately where the pedestrian crossing would be to link to the existing pedestrian and cycle infrastructure. And it's a zebra crossing. There are all sorts of crossings, zebras, pelicans, etc. So that's a zebra crossing has the black and white poles and the yellow beacon on top. There is one off-site junction improvement required by condition as well, and it's at the Asda roundabout. So the improvement is that the entry lanes from both sides of Barkby Thorpe Lane would be widened so that they can accommodate 2 cars side by side, one for left turns, one for head-on traffic. So the key issues then for consideration are those. So the principle of development is established in the local plan. These are allocated sites with the expectation that they will be developed. The applicant has satisfied the requirement to provide a master plan and development brief, and those are at a satisfactory standard for this stage in the evolution of design that we've reached so far. Housing mix and the provision of affordable housing are secured by conditions. Ecology and biodiversity, again, are secured by both conditions and obligations. The landscape and trees, similarly, secured by conditions and obligations. Residential amenity has been considered. The principal concerns, plural, are the noise impact from the railway line and the potential to overlook the Inglenook Mobile Home Park. And those have both been addressed and are secured by condition. Design and layout are matters for the next stage, so really not before you tonight at all. Flood risk has been assessed and subject to conditions is found satisfactory by the relevant authorities. And similarly, highways has been assessed by the local highways authority, and they have given us the final thumbs up, if you like, yesterday, just in time. The access and the offside junction are secured by condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have a speaker this evening, and it is Amy Gilliver, is it Gilliver? Gilliver, who is representing the applicant. Would you like to come forward and speak to us? Are you familiar with the equipment there? You have 3 minutes in which to speak, and when you have 1 minute remaining, Ms Dobson will let you know.
Good evening, Chair and members. My name is Amy Gilliver, and I'm the Senior Planning Manager at Bellway Homes East Midlands and the applicant for this proposal. I'm pleased to speak tonight in support of this outline application for the erection of 130 dwellings in Thurmaston. One of the most critical points for members to consider this evening is that this site is allocated for housing within the recently adopted local plan. The principle of development is therefore firmly established. This proposal doesn't just meet the requirements of that allocation, it has been meticulously designed to exceed the criteria set out in your own policy. Through extensive and proactive dialogue with your officers, we have refined the design of this scheme to ensure it functions as a vibrant, well-integrated neighbourhood. Crucially, we have worked in tandem with the neighbouring HA7 application to ensure a comprehensive development approach. This isn't just about one site, it's about a master plan vision that ensures consistent design and seamless green infrastructure across the whole area. The application is backed by a full suite of technical evidence. I would draw members' attention to the fact that there are no outstanding objections from any statutory consultees. The lead local flood authority, highways, Network Rail and your own landscape and tree officers are all satisfied with our mitigation strategies and design parameters. The proposal will deliver up to 130 high quality homes, including 30% affordable housing, directly supporting your housing land supply with a mix that will meet local market needs. We are committing over £1.5 million in Section 106 contributions towards local education, healthcare and vital upgrades to the nearby railway station. And we are providing significant levels of public open space and biodiversity net gain that will be secured via a robust landscape management plan. We have carefully reviewed the draft conditions and can confirm that Bellway Homes is fully committed to their implementation. This is a plan-led, technically sound proposal that transforms an allocated site into a sustainable development. Therefore, I respectfully request that you follow your officer's recommendation and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I now turn to the Planning Committee and ask if there are anyone who want to make any comments or ask questions of the officers. Could you please raise your hand? Councillor Smidovic.
I'm just curious because we've looked at management quite a bit today. And it talks about the long-term management and monitoring of the habitat types. So how long is long-term management and how short is it?
Thank you, Chair. It's 30 years is the term. It's a minimum of 30 years. So some of the expectation is that the applicant should endeavour to deliver biodiversity net gain on site. There's a realization that there may be some off-site requirement as well, and depending on where the off-site requirement is secured, that long-term management might be controlled by other means. So it's only the on-site habitat management that we'll be concerned about.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed in your presentation you spoke about the visual separation of north and south. What about the physical separation? I don't want it to be separated. It's going to be one development. So how are you going to ensure that it is going to be fully integrated, both sites in there? And whilst you're on that as well, I was involved in this before HA7 was HA7, and it was always, I think for the last 15 years, going to be a development in Bellway's ownership. So it's something that we've probably got used to over the time. But I am concerned about the field that's being left, land retained for agriculture. And if it is retained for agriculture, will that mean that there will be agricultural buildings going, vehicles going through the development? Or is that for the off-site allotments? What is it earmarked for? Because that just doesn't tell me what's going to end up there. And what I'm concerned with is that eventually this is going to be HA7B. And obviously I want assurance that that's not going to happen. Thank you.
Mr Ward.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's a kind of a tension in the policy, in the way the policy is drafted, which on the one hand seeks a master plan and cohesion across the allocation as a whole, but on the other hand asks for the separate identities of the two parts of the site to be maintained, for the two settlements to be maintained. So the way that the applicant has gone about that is to define two separate visions, one for the northern bit and one for the southern bit. And that the way that how they've justified that in part is about the separate identities, but in part it's about responding to the different contexts that both parts of the scheme are delivered within. So the density of development on Barkby Lane in the Syston application is a bit lower, existing development I mean, and the density around Brackenfield Way, etc., is a little bit higher. So they've responded to the built form of the areas closest to them. The separation then is achieved, as I mentioned, in different ways on east and west. On the east, it's achieved by the link road ultimately being elevated above the existing landform to levels above eye level. So the line of sight between the two settlements wouldn't be feasible on the eastern side. But on the western side, where the proposed link road is going to be closer to the existing ground level, that separation is achieved by that separation distance. You rightly ask a question about that agricultural field, the retention of the agricultural field. And this is something that we've discussed with the applicant at length during various iterations of the master plan. And many of those iterations included a road to that western boundary, which would ultimately then serve the land to the west and serve as a development road. But the version of the master plan that we're asking you to include in conditions tonight, or to approve in conditions tonight, wouldn't have that link. It specifically sets aside the use of that land for agriculture, and that would be a material consideration in any application that ever came before you in future for use of that land for some other purpose. But if such an application ever did come to you in future, you'd have to consider whether the separation between the two settlements was compromised. You'd have to consider how access was achieved. So all of those things are matters for some future application. But this application on this allocation, together with the second application that we'll consider tonight, would between them deliver 209 dwellings against an indicative or an approximate number of 180 across the allocation in the local plan. So 209 is just about stretching the limits of what approximately 180 means. If someone were to come forward with a greater number than that, there would be all sorts of infrastructural obstacles to the delivery of those, as well as the policy obstacles. I should say as well, when I mentioned conditions, I omitted to say in the presentation that the extras report relists all of the conditions, because there were a number of late consultation responses which needed to be factored in. And there is one change to recommendation A as well, which is the cost of the bus passes. The information we received from LCC Highways yesterday increases the cost of those a little bit. And the applicant has its sight of that, as Ms. Gilliver mentioned, and is content that those revised conditions and revised obligations are acceptable to the applicant at least.
Okay, thank you very much. If I continue, Chair, if that's okay.
Please
So
do.
the land retained for agriculture, and the part where the land, there is a sum of money, 14,000 something or other, for allotment land in the near vicinity. So that isn't the near vicinity, is it? No. So it won't be there.
No, the allotments won't be there. The council's open spaces officer has a different idea about where they will be, but it won't be there.
Okay, so I need to obviously speak to the person who, yeah, is that down in the form at all, in any of the paperwork? Where they have an idea it would be? No, it's in somebody's head, right? Okay, thank you. And my other question would be, well, query, and I do understand that this is part of the local plan and it's been passed, and it's always been earmarked as development land. But we do have Inglenook caravan site, and it's like an ecosystem all of its own, because it's got very tall embankments to it, and obviously the land retained in agriculture is behind it. But the visual display of leaving that land is difficult now, and I do understand that the development should not put money towards making something better that is a problem now, but they are going to increase that problem by more people coming out and entering that development. So I'm very keen on the fact that it needs improvement to the left of Inglenook caravan sites to make sure that the visual display is better than it is now, because we have got potentially 180 odd times 2 cars leaving that development site. So is there anything on there that that stipulates the cutting back of the hedgerow that is there to make it easier for Inglenook caravan residents to exit?
Yes, Councillor Seaton, the access plan, which would be approved if this application were resolved to be approved, extends a 3-metre wide footpath to the boundary with Inglenook. So the remaining obstacle after the delivery of that footpath would be the pillar that sits on the sort of gate post, if you like, on the eastern side of the entrance to Inglenook. And that's within Inglenook's property. So if they were to remove that, they would have a 3-metre wide visibility display to the railway bridge.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Looking through the report, there's a number of comments made by the John Woods Urban Design Officer that don't appear to have been resolved yet. And looking at the extras report, they remain unresolved. Given that this is sort of a medium-sized development, but on the side of the Thornbury development, which is a large urban design area, that raises concerns in my mind that those issues remain unresolved. So my question is really, are they going to be better resolved before we approve an outline, or are those design issues something that could be delayed until reserved matters?
Mr Ward.
Those are reserved matters, Councillor. This application is an outline, and as I said in the presentation, the main purpose of an illustrative layout at this stage is to demonstrate that the quantum of development for which permission is sought can be accommodated. You're quite right that the urban design officer has been quite critical, and his criticism is quite detailed. And those comments will better inform the next stage of planning at this site. So if the applicant were to submit a reserved matters application, They have the benefit of having that detailed commentary from the urban design officer now, and we would hope then that they would pay attention to those comments, and that the reserve matter scheme, should one be submitted, would be of higher quality and would be closer to a standard that the urban design officer would support. The urban design officer is one consultee amongst many, and there will be occasions when officers will differ. We sort of have to be referees between the various consultees, and they'll often give us competing bits of advice. But those detailed comments are probably more appropriate for the next stage.
Okay, thank you. Chair, if I may, I've got one further question on access. With an estate like this that's got a single point of access, that can also become a single point of failure. And on some other estates which I've seen, provision is made for an emergency access, which is typically closed off and gated. Would there be an option with this development of providing such an emergency access that may only be used by, say, emergency services once or twice a year in an emergency situation?
Those sorts of double accesses or secondary accesses that you describe are more typical of very much larger schemes, or where there is some known risk, like a flood risk, for example, at the point of egress. There isn't any known risk at this point of egress, so there wasn't thought, the Local Highways Authority didn't think that a second access was necessary at all.
Okay, thank you. That's everything I have. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. Now you've got that up, you've just reminded me what my other part of the question was, and it was the footpath, the pedestrian access. If you could, you've got the zebra crossing there, and you've got the blue dotted line. Could you just explain to me what the blue dotted line is, and the black solid line that's just before Inglenook Park? Is that a footpath internal to the development or external to the road? The one that goes all the way along to the entrance, yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so this is a 3-metre footpath that extends from the vehicular access and across the frontage to the entrance to Inglenook Park. And this one is a 3-metre cycle path, cycle and pedestrian path, which you're being asked to approve as well, which would be it would be a second access to the site, but it wouldn't be a vehicular access, in part because there is a crash barrier at the road, so you don't come full pelt out of the cycle path and on straight onto the road. So cyclists are captured, caught by that gate, and then redirected across to the crossing.
So will the footpath be external of the development, not internal? Because I think it was going to be an internal footpath, and it's now an external footpath, so it's an extension of the road. And does it go beyond the entrance as well? Please, thank you.
It's external. You're quite right. At an earlier stage, the proposal was to retain the roadside hedge and to have the footpath inside the hedge. The Highway Authority weren't particularly keen on that, so it was changed. The Highway Authority wanted this footpath to become an extension of the highway. I forgot to answer your other question about the blue lines. The blue lines are the visibility splays, which are 2.4 by 43 metres left and right. The extension of the footpath in the opposite direction toward the railway line was something that had been raised before, and we raised it with the applicant, we raised it with Highways, and neither said, the applicant didn't want to provide it, and the Local Highway Authority said it wasn't necessary, and it isn't necessary for this development. We can't say that it is, because the desire lines for pedestrians are all westward toward Asda and the shopping centre.
It's maybe something that when Thornbury is built, that we can consider that when that junction is altered. Thank you.
Yeah, when Thorpebury is built, and particularly when that Northern Link Road is built, it's designed to have footpaths on both sides. So that link road is likely to become the main pedestrian point or line of egress from Thorpebury.
And I like your optimism of 5 years. It's essential to be way more than that. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, this application is for outline permission with access. And the slide that we saw of the 130 houses and the way they're arranged is purely illustrative to give us an idea, but is not part of the application. In other words, it's not set like, I'm thinking about last week or the last one. Yeah, I don't want to go there again. It's purely for illustrative purpose. The reason why I ask is because, they look rather close together. Now, I know the planning officer said that the housing density is within acceptable limits, but even so, they do look rather squeezed into me. Thank you.
Mr Ward.
The principal parameter, I suppose, or principal parameters for any application are those set out in the description of development, and the description of development in this case is up to 130. So, I mentioned a couple of times that the main job of this illustrative layout is to show us that up to 130 could be accommodated. The separations are perhaps not as bad as you fear. They're quite typical of the sorts of things you would see in one of the larger estates. We visited the site in Barrow earlier, and these are separations between dwellings here are on par with that, I would say. But you're right. We're not being asked to approve this layout. We are being asked to require that the development is delivered in general accordance with the master plan or the development brief as a whole. And the development brief as a whole includes all of those parameter plans that I showed earlier, and it includes this layout, this layout this is an extract from the layout that it includes. So general accordance with this doesn't mean that we set aside all of the design criteria that Councillor Bellamy was concerned about earlier. So if a reserve matters application is submitted, which is in general accordance with that layout, but the design quality is rubbish, we'd still refuse it. So we have all of the policies in the local plan which become which are relevant for all applications, but are relevant again when the reserve matters application is submitted. So general accordance, but still good, is what we're after next time around.
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you. I'm sure I won't be able to include this on the conditions, but as part of this, there is the reconfiguration slightly of the Asda roundabout, and so that it can be a 2-lane going round. But the problem is not that, although they're attempting to do that. The problem is not having a hatched box. And at the moment, it's not got a hatched box to keep it clear. So it's irrelevant whether it's 1 lane going through or 2 lanes, because the cars are so want to get to the shopping centre. So I wondered whether we could put something on the conditions to have a hatched box on there to allow the free flow of the traffic. Because let's just go to say where I live. If I wanted just to go straight over, I'd have to queue with Asda and with the shopping centre, because I can't, it's all snared up. So that would make the traffic flow a lot easier. But I don't think that I could put that, or we could put that on conditions. But we may be able to. I've been surprised before.
The applicant will tell you that they have submitted, I think it's 5 different iterations of highway design before we got to the point where the local highway authority were satisfied that they had considered everything. And each of those or certainly the later of those submissions included detailed consideration of that junction and other junctions as well. Like some of the consideration of junctions is done using software, nationally provided software, and that software spits out table after table after table of predicted design flows in different directions, which address different concerns, some of which are measured, some of which are theoretical. And having gone through that exercise, the local highway authority were satisfied that those improvements to the junction were necessary. So it's back to this thing about necessary again, and conditions have to be necessary. If they weren't considered necessary, then we can't ask for them.
Councillor Bellamy.
I've got one question on the relationship with Thornbury. There was stuff in the report that the developers at Thornbury were unhappy with the location of the road that would run through. Is there a risk that that might be something that might be appealed and go to the inspector and be extra delays and costs for this development?
Thank you, Chair. No, if you were to grant or resolve to grant permission tonight, appeal wouldn't be the route of challenge for the developers of Thornbury, for example. They would have to judicially review the decision, which is an even more onerous burden on everybody if that's the route that they chose. But I don't think that they will. The developers of Thornbury submitted a legal opinion, which set out all of their concerns. The applicant submitted a counter opinion, which set out how those concerns were not legitimate fears, and we engaged a barrister as well, who kind of acted as referee, if you like, in between those other two competing views. The reference that the developers of Thornbury made was to a High Court decision called Hillside, for short. And one of the things that it discusses is that a second permission could kill an earlier permission if it made it physically impossible for the first permission to be completed. And that's the concern about in this case, the concern is about the delivery of that Northern Link Road. Are these two applications so close together that Northern Link Road couldn't be built? And the bar is very high. The bar is a physical impossibility. It's not a cheaper option, a landownership matter. It's physically impossible. Is it physically impossible to build that link road? And the diagram on the right-hand side of the screen now is one that the applicant provided, having engaged with RPS as one of the biggest engineering consultancies in the UK, in the world actually, to more or less design that link road. It's, you know, they didn't have to do that. That's not within this application site, but we had to be assured before we could grant permission that that road could be delivered and it wasn't a physical impossibility. So we've gone quite far in addressing this issue and addressing the concern that was expressed by the developers of Thornbury, and we're confident that we have gotten to the point now where we can confidently say that it is not a physical impossibility for them to develop the link road. So therefore there isn't a basis for challenge. That's not to say a challenge won't come. Of course, you know, everyone's entitled to make a challenge if they must, but we think that we have considered the matter in the way that we should. We've set it all out in a lengthy note, which is on the file and cross-referenced in the officer's report, and we've brought it to your attention tonight. So it's something that you're aware of as you take this decision. But I hope you can be assured that officers have deliberated over this at length and engaged external counsel to help us with that deliberation. And the conclusion was that the basis for challenge is not justified.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much to the speakers and also to the discussion we've had. I would like to propose we accept officer's recommendation as per the report and the extras report.
Thank you, councillor Fryer. Do we need to include any amendments from the extras report with that, Mr Ward?
Yes, we do, but I think councillor Fryer has reflected those. So just for the record, the amendments are: 1, in recommendation A, which is to increase the cost of the bus passes, and 2, in recommendation B, to adopt the full list of conditions that are set out in the extras report.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Councillor Boker.
Only I was going to second the proposal.
Right, we've got a proposal and a seconder to accept officers' recommendations. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Lovely. That's unanimous. So we'll finish that item and go on to the next item on the agenda, which is planning application 5B. Number P/23/0932/2. Land south of Barkby Lane, Syston. I'd like to refer to our planning officer, Mr Ward.
Thank you, Chair. As I said earlier, there's quite a bit of overlap between these two applications, so it is necessary, because you must consider the applications separately, that we go through it again, but I'll go through it in a very much abbreviated fashion, if you don't mind. These are the allocations. HA7, north and south. We're dealing with the northern bit this time. The 2 dark orange blobs suggest where the housing should be built, and in this case, you can see that for the northern parcel, the orange blob is fat on the left side and thin on the right side. There you have all of the context, bus stops, etc. In this case, the bus stop that we're interested in is the one just at the top of the screen, which is on Melton Road. There are bus stops on either side of the road, and those go north and south. Should have said at the beginning of this presentation, as I should have at the last one, that I refer you to the extras report, and similar to the last one, there are amendments to the contribution toward bus passes, which is what reminded me to say this, and the list of conditions is revised to reflect the latest set of consultee comments. So in the middle of the site, or well, left middle of the site, you can see a clump of trees, which I'll refer to several times during the following slides. That's an existing cluster of trees, which appears to have been part of a dwelling, a residence, a farmyard at one stage, and the applicant submitted a heritage statement which included a series of ordnance survey maps, and buildings in roughly that square or that rectangle first appear on the 1843 ordnance survey maps, and they're still there, seemingly fully intact until the 1976 versions of the maps, and then in the 2000 version of an ordnance survey map, they are reduced in number and scale, and they don't appear to be roofed, because ordnance survey maps don't colour in buildings that are not roofed. And now there is very little evidence of them being left, apart from that clump of trees which remain standing to mark the site. And you'll be glad to know that that clump of trees is to be maintained. So the arrows that have just appeared on the screen are where the site photographs relate to, and I'll just quickly whiz through those. So standing on Barkby Lane, looking into the body of the site, roughly from the point where the access would be taken, and the access leads the eye toward that clump of trees, which is to be retained. Taken from the bridge which crosses the railway line on Barkby Lane, which is controlled traffic crossing that bridge. So looking into the site, it's a good vantage point to look into the site, and as you can see, it's relatively flat on this side. It rises slightly, in the top photograph you can see that it rises slightly toward the middle of the frame behind the trees, but the main body of the site is quite flat. The proposal includes a footpath 3 metres wide again from the site entrance, which is just about the bottom left of that image, all the way to the site's western boundary at the far end of that frame on the left-hand side of the road. And then this is from the back of the site looking northward toward Barkby Lane again, with that clump of trees in the middle distance and the existing built development on the northern side of Barkby Lane, peeking through the hedgerows. This is taken along part of the southern boundary. The southern boundary of this site isn't defined by existing hedgerows or any existing physical features. It's defined more by the line of the link road from the Thorpery estate. So it bisects that hedge that you can see on the left-hand side of the bottom left frame at a point, with part of the hedge being within the site and part outside. And then going back toward the railway side again, the road where it crosses the railway line is elevated in the same way that the proposed link road is going to be elevated. And from within the site, this is the view some of the householders might have of the road, with the embankment heavily covered in trees. Difference in level at its height between the road and the adjacent field level is about 6 metres. So again, very similar to what's expected for the future link road. Well, we've talked about all of this. We have to mention it again in passing. There is a concern from the developer of Thorpery that the development of these two sites could prejudice their ability to complete the development of Thorpery. We've looked at it and we don't think that that's the case. We've asked the applicant to look at it in more detail, and they've produced quite a few engineering drawings and information which persuade us that there remains the physical possibility to deliver the road for Thorpery. Therefore, no prejudice arises. Development brief is required. It has all of those parameter plans. And we have the illustrative master plan again for the two sites combined. And then we have a slightly more detailed illustrative layout for this application site. And again, its purpose is to demonstrate to us that the up to 79 dwellings, which this application seeks permission for, can be accommodated given the various physical constraints to development that always arise. So you can see that clump of trees in the middle of the site is retained, and the principal play area marked with the yellow star is quite close to that. The green space closest to Barkby Lane, just beside the access, is the attenuation pond. And it's there because of topography. That's the low point in the site, so the water will naturally collect at that point. We've got the railway line on the right-hand side, which is a constraint as well, and an acoustic barrier is necessary to mitigate the noise impact of the railway on the residents of the houses, particularly those closest to the railway line. Point of access, you can see along Barkby Lane, coming off the south side of Barkby Lane, it's about 1/3 of the way along the site's frontage. The point of access is picked sort of between the opposite accesses, if you like, not too close to the western boundary, not too far away from it, because the pedestrian egress from the site would be in two places. One is of course at the vehicular access point, exit point, and the second then there's proposed, on the illustrative layout at least, there's proposed to be another access on the westernmost boundary of the site. Site access is there. Off-site junction improvements similar to the roundabout on the last application. So there is some widening of the roundabout in this location at the junction between Barkby Lane and Melton Road, which is just about 200 metres away from the site. And the second piece of off-site infrastructure improvement that is sought by local highways authority by condition is improvement to the two bus stops, which are just north of that roundabout. So the improvement is signage and, well, it's largely about signage. The key issues again, principle of development, as before, this is an allocated site. So the principle is established there. Master plan and development brief, that has been addressed by the the master plan and development brief submitted to our satisfaction. Housing mix and affordable housing secured by conditions and obligations. Ecology and biodiversity similarly secured by conditions and obligations. Landscape and trees, same. Residential amenity, yes, again secured by conditions. The principal concern for residential amenity in this site is noise, and that has been addressed by the submission of an acoustic assessment. The acoustic assessment was based on an earlier iteration of a layout, but a condition requires that its provisions are carried across into the Reserve Matters application, and that a revised acoustic assessment is submitted with the Reserve Matters application, which responds to the revised layout, the detailed layout when it's submitted. Design and layout, as mentioned, are matters for the next stage. Flood risk, there is some surface water risk associated with this site, but the case law over recent years indicates that if that surface water risk can be addressed within the detailed layout, such that the residents are safe or protected from flooding for the lifetime of the development, then it shouldn't be an obstacle to the grant of permission. And the flood risk assessment submitted by the applicant addresses the requirements of both policy and then the case law. So we're satisfied that the conditions can address that flood risk. But again, that some of that detail will emerge at the next stage, and we'll revisit at the next stage. And highways matters, you've had a look at the access proposal, which is supported by the local highways authorities now, and the off-site improvements, which is also supported by the highways authority. And then, as a reminder, you're being asked to consider the obligation amended in the extras report and the conditions as amended in the extras report. One unusual element about recommendation B in this application is that we still await some consultation responses, and we invite members to delegate authority to the head of planning and growth to address any matters that arise as a result of those late consultation responses, and if necessary to add further planning conditions. We don't expect anything to be necessary, because the changes that we sought are updates to the technical reports which reflect the latest version of the layout. And because the layout is not a matter for consideration now, it's really more a case of having the plans that are included or appended to some of those technical reports reflect the plan that is illustrated in the layout that I showed you on the screen earlier. So we don't want to be granting permission with conditions that secure flood risk assessment, for example, based on an earlier version of a layout. It needs to be secured on the basis of the layout that we're considering in the master planning section. But because that's a matter, the detail of that layout is a matter for a later stage, we're confident that no material change will arise from the reconsultation exercise, albeit that it's not quite concluded yet. It's probably another week or so before the last of those responses reaches. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. We have two speakers on this item. The first speaker is Miss Amy Gilliver. I think you probably know what you're doing now. You've got 3 minutes to speak. When 1 minute is remaining, Ms. Dobson will let you know.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening again, members. I'm pleased to speak in support of this second application for the northern component of the HA7 allocation. Many of the points I will make echo those raised during your consideration of the southern component, which you have just determined. However, I want to emphasise that tonight's decisions represent two halves of a single unified vision. By approving this northern phase, you are ensuring a comprehensive development approach. We have worked tirelessly with your officers to ensure that the infrastructure, green corridors, and design parameters across both applications are perfectly aligned. This is about delivering a cohesive scheme rather than two isolated sites. As with the previous item, this site is a formal allocation in your recently adopted local plan. The principle of development is established, and our proposal meets every criteria of that allocation policy. This proposal is supported by the same rigorous technical evidence as the previous phase, and crucially, there are no technical objections from Highways, Network Rail, the Tree Officer, or Environmental Health. While smaller in scale, with up to 79 dwellings, this phase still delivers significant community infrastructure, including over £900,000 in Section 106 contributions towards education, healthcare, and regional rail upgrades, 30% affordable housing, providing much-needed homes for local people, and strategic open space that seamlessly connects to the wider green infrastructure strategy for the area. We have reviewed the planning conditions and remain fully committed to meeting the stringent design parameters set out in the development brief. Approval tonight allows us to move forward with consistent high-quality reserved matters submissions for the entire HA7 allocation. This is the final piece of the master plan puzzle for the area. It is a plan-led, sustainable proposal that completes a strategic allocation. I respectfully request that you follow your officer's recommendation and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. The second speaker on this item is Ward Councillor, Councillor Infield, who called in the planning application. Councillor Infield, I assume you're familiar with the equipment.
That's me.
And you have 3 minutes in which to speak. When you have 1 minute remaining, Ms Dobson will let you know.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. This development also lies within Charnwood Local Plan Allocation HA7, as you've heard. So good reasons must exist to justify rejection. I believe there are 2 such good reasons, and these I'll now briefly summarise. So this site sits within what was once upon a time a green wedge. Some of you might remember those, now degraded to an area of separation. If this development is allowed, it will seriously degrade the now limited separation between Syston and Thurmaston, and I think you could see that on the map. My second objection concerns access and traffic. So as you will have seen, this site lies between Barby Lane and the route plan for the Northern Link Road for the sustainable urban expansion of Thornbury. Commercial difficulties are delaying that project, and the Link Road is unlikely to be constructed for many, many years. Consequently, I'm guessing this was anticipated, the proposed access to the site is proposed via Barby Lane. This is a narrow road unsuited to heavy traffic, already used as a rat run, too narrow to accommodate a cycle lane. There is no bus service along the lane, so access to shops, schools, medical centres and employment would almost always be by car, regrettably. Thus, the sustainability of this arrangement must therefore be questioned. This would all change, of course, if the Northern Link Road was in place. For this reason, I want to urge the committee to defer this application until work has at least started on the Link Road so that it can serve as a preferential access. I should add that my concerns are echoed by local councils and numerous local residents who have lodged objections. I'd also want to point out that, of course, the traffic down Barby Lane will add to already busy traffic on the existing Melton Road. So please do give serious consideration to these 2 concerns in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Infield. I turn to the committee now to consider the application and ask for your comments and questions. Sir Haji Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite worried about the statement about building in the area of separation. Can we have another look on the picture? So I'm sorry to be thick, but where is the area of separation?
It's no longer an area of local separation. In the adopted local plan, it all forms part of this housing allocation. But one of the bullet points in the land use policy for this allocation is that the separation of the two settlements is maintained. And you heard me talk in the first presentation in particular about how that's achieved. On the east side, it's the link road. The elevated section of the link road will prevent that visual connection. So there's a physical separation as well as the perceptual separation. And on the west side, it's the distance, it's the agricultural field that some of the members spoke about earlier, and the separation that achieves between the built form of Thurmaston at the back of the Inglenook Park and the built form on the proposed application site. Responding to some of what Councillor Infield said, I can see the logic that he sets out in having access from these two allocations onto the link road. But then that there's also a tension there as well, because if we're to achieve the separation, then we don't want them linking. We want to have that physical separation either in distance or the roadway with embankment. So there is a tension, no doubt there's a tension between achieving all things. But the most important thing, or the thing that's been prioritized in the land use policy, is separation. And if we're going to have separation, then we shouldn't take access onto the link road. It should be separate means of access, addressing separate settlements. So the traffic from this development, the one we're considering now in the second application, is the Syston application, and it should address Syston with its pedestrian and traffic movements.
Councillor Hadji Nicolau, is that acceptable? Do you need to come back?
When you said, I'm sorry, through you, Chair, when you said there is no area of separation, is actually this area of separation had disappeared in the past, or it disappears now with this development?
So areas of local separation are set out in the local plan, and the local plan that was adopted a month or so ago defines things differently, and what it defines as the land use in this part of the borough is residential development. It's a housing allocation. It's not an area of local separation. An area of local separation is a separate thing in land use policy terms, and they're marked separately. They're marked differently, I should say, on the policies map that's associated with the adopted plan. So in this case, this is not an area of local separation in the adopted plan, albeit that the land use policy says that in designing the development within this allocation, that we should be cognizant of the fact that one is Thurmaston and the other is Syston, so they are different places, and that identity of the two places shouldn't merge.
Are there any more comments? Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask a question on the flood risk that was mentioned. Looking at the report, it notes that the lead local flood authority was still looking for more information on the surface flooding, and that there might be extra consultation going on and stuff provided in the extras. Have all of the issues raised by the LLFA now been resolved, or are there outstanding flooding related issues still being considered?
Yes, the flood risk issues have been resolved to the satisfaction of the LLFA, subject to, I think it was 5 planning conditions which they recommend. But the reconsultation, as I mentioned, is about, so the flood risk assessment is, I don't know how many pages, let's say 50 pages. And within some of those pages, there is a flood map which overlays the illustrative layout plan. But if that was an illustrative layout plan as devised in 2023 when the application was made, and we've moved on to a different version of an illustrative layout, that overlay needs to change. So the revised flood risk assessment makes that change. It changes those diagrams. It looks at the flood risk on places where houses are proposed now, which weren't places where houses were proposed 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We don't expect there to be a different outcome because the entire site is flood zone 1, or the entire developable part of the site is flood zone 1. There's a tiny bit of flood zone 3 close to the railway line, but it's only a tiny strip. The body of the site is flood zone 1. So that doesn't, if it's not flood zone 2 or 3, it's not an obstacle to development. It's just a question of what will the mitigation be in different places? Will it be raising the finished floor levels of houses to some level, or will it be something else? And the detail that will be submitted later, the conditions that were recommended by the LLFA so far are and included in the extras pack, together with the updated flood risk assessment, which will probably become a condition to document as well. The flood risk is protected for the lifetime of the homes proposed.
Thank you. I've also got a question on the groundwater flooding, which was mentioned in the report, with there being a secondary aquifer flowing through the sand and gravel that underlies the site. Is that something that's been addressed already, or is that something that remains?
Yes, it's been considered already in all of the consultee responses and isn't an obstacle to development.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions? Councillor Boker and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. My question was partly answered on the next page when I could find it, but it talks about on the top of page 138, impact on highways not fully assessed, and then in 2025, exactly the same. On page 139, it says that the LHA confirms they've now been in dialogue with the appointed transport consultant, and the technical detail has now been submitted as acceptable. So the first part of my question is Charnwood approving that detail that has been submitted? Sorry.
Well, those technical details are some of the late items that I mentioned that we're still waiting for consultation responses on. We don't expect them to prove to be obstacles because they have been addressed previously. Consultees have all commented on them previously. The comments from about highways not being fully assessed were resolved in the last couple of days with the final comments from our colleagues in the County Council. And as I say, the flood risk assessment is back out for consultation again, but it's certainly not anticipated to be a showstopper or anything close to a showstopper. It's possible that a condition wording might need to change to reflect whatever the LLFA might say this time. But it's not likely to have a material effect on the decision before you tonight.
It also says that traffic flow scenarios, assessment years agreed to now in 2029 and 2037. So what can they achieve in the future that they can't achieve now? So I can't understand that. I've never seen.
Yeah, one of the ways that the cumulative impact of traffic flows are considered by the local highway authority is to project forward. So some of that, well, much of all of that's theoretical. How do you project forward? You can't count them. It has to be theory. So they will always want to project forward about 10 years and look at how's a junction performing today, and with all of the planned development that's likely to happen, and the data gathered over many years about growth in traffic volumes anyway from a static population, they will project forward how that capacity might, or how that junction might perform in 10 years' time. And that's what they've done. That's why they refer to those future years.
Councillor Boker.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Infield referred to a proposal that we defer this until the main link road is built, if I remember correctly. Are there any legal grounds on which this could be achieved?
We have an application before us, which we have to determine on the basis of the information before us. We've gone to consultation. We have support from all of the technical consultees, albeit that we're refreshing some of those. But no, there would be no basis to refuse permission to wait for something else, or to defer to wait for something else.
And even if you did defer the application, the applicant could appeal to the planning inspectorate, because you've not determined the application when there's no good reason why you should not decide the matter tonight.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the two comments. That's what I thought, and therefore I propose officer's recommendation on this because it's all part of HA7 and we've just passed the first part. And there's no reasons to not pass this.
Councillor Boker, will your proposal take account of the extras, conditions and amendments, and also that recommendation be for officers to be delegated to make some conditions and decisions? Thank you. Councillor Fryer.
Second the proposal as laid out.
We've had a proposal seconded from Councillor Boker, seconded by Councillor Fryer, to accept officer's recommendations, any extras, conditions and amendments, and recommendation B in the extras, which gives delegation of authority to officers for other conditions and consultations. All those in favour? Yeah. Any against? Abstentions? Thank you.
So that motion is carried 11-4 with one abstention.
Members, I've been alerted that there are some councillors who want to take a break. Are you okay for 5 minutes break? Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, we're on our last item now, which is item 5C, planning number P/22/0645/2, 84 Melton Road, Barrow-on-Soar. I would like to refer to our planning officer. I just got to say, Councillor Fryer has removed herself from the meeting as she's called it in to be considered by the planning committee. So we've got two speakers that we know of this evening. And first of all, I'd like to refer to our planning officer, Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So yes, this application, as you can see, has been with us for quite a while. It's a 2022 application. It's for the variation of condition 1 and 7 of the 2015 permitted reserved matters application. And these two conditions are aiming to substitute the approved details in respect of landscaping, footpaths, play areas, skate park and Muga area. Just to give a better overview of the site and characteristics, the main entrance to the site, as you can see there, is from Melton Road in the northwest corner. The land can be differentiated between an area adjacent to the existing brook, which includes a meadow surrounded by mature trees on the western side of the site, and a larger section with an agricultural field to the eastern side. The site is bounded to the southwest by an embankment, on top of which is a double railway line. To the northwest, the site is bounded by Fishpool Brook Watercourse, beyond which are the rear gardens of properties on Breach Field Road. There are good screens of trees and hedgerows between these properties and the development site. The northeastern section adjoins the curtilage of another dwelling in Melton Road, and to the east is another piece of land used as garden nursery and rough pasture grassland further to the east. The land slopes up to the higher ground in the northeast section of the site, and there is good tree and hedgerow screening around the entire boundary. Also, as the screenshot above shows, the dwellings have been constructed and the development has been largely completed, but the finishing details of the landscaping, play areas, skate park and Muga need to be finalised, which is why we're here this evening. The next slide, there were actually 12 different landscape plans submitted, but sheets 5 to 8 were not submitted, as they have not been amended as a result of this current Section 73 application. Essentially, there are 4 landscape amendments proposed and 1 related to the Muga and slight repositioning, rearrangement. I will go through these now briefly. The first one is the crib wall retaining structure, fronting plots 81 and 8-84 and 100 to 113. That is towards the northeastern side of the site. The crib wall retaining structure became necessary as during detailed design, the site levels had to be adjusted to minimize the amount of retaining required between individual plots. Using this retaining wall on the perimeter minimized the need for retaining between plots, which has led to an improvement of the amenity and usability of the private garden spaces. So there's, from the introduction of the retaining wall, then there was a kick-on effect in terms of having to reposition a number of trees. And as you can see there, these trees have been repositioned to the base of the retaining wall. So the same number of trees are proposed, but they've just been repositioned to a different place. Another aspect of the proposal is the deletion, using the same slide, the deletion of the proposed footpath linking plots 118 and 133. and associated litter dog waste bins. Now, the removal of this part of the pathway was removed as the driveway serving plots 132 to 136 is a private access route and is not dedicated for public use. It was deemed inappropriate to direct this pedestrian route through privately owned residential access arrangements. The applicant, they did explore whether the footpath could be realigned to connect directly to Melton Road. However, there is the existence of an approved Badger Tunnel in this location, which restricts the available land and prevents the formation of a safe and continuous public footpath. The next slide really is related to the redistribution of the litter and dog waste bins around the play area. There is a reduction proposed in the number of bins provided from 4 to 2. This was suggested because the provision of 4 in this one area was considered too much. So it's been reduced to 2, which felt more proportionate. Now, the last of the landscape slides shows the area on the southern side of the site, which is from the tour of the site earlier today. The councillors would have seen that this is the area of the site really where things need to be finalised, and really the subject of the proposal is mostly to do with this particular area of the site. This is the children's playground and the Muga. It's been slightly rearranged, and the reasons for this are the concerns raised at the last committee meeting. There was concern regarding proximity of the Muga and skate park with residential dwellings and the potential for noise and disturbance. Also, there was a lack of separation between the Muga and skate park and the play area for the younger children, and concern that parents of younger children would be deterred from using the facilities for the younger kids due to this proximity. So now the revised plan retains a wide circular path to access the site and encourages active surveillance. The path is also aligned so that it splits the younger children's play facility from the skate park Muga area, providing a degree of natural separation. And lastly, the Muga and skate park are set behind the play area to increase separation from houses and reduce the potential for disturbance and complaints. And just a point of note that the Muga is located further from the railway line than the original reserved matters plans. Now, there have been a number of letters of representation from residents and people interested in the development and how this development will be finished and finalised. Chiefly among those matters raised were missing bulb planting and repeated tree failures, footpath quality and safety concerns, insufficient bins leading to overflows, and missing timber, knee rail and hedgerow planting, and finally the removal of hard surface footpath around the Muga and the balancing pond. Firstly, just the hard surface path around the Muga area. The peripheral route of the Muga has always been shown as a mown path, and it was approved on that basis. It's also should be noted that the council's open space team have agreed with the proposal and it's considered acceptable, and that the peripheral route was never part of the discussion, only the play area. Regarding the other objection or concern was the landscaping and planting not carried out as approved, but it should be noted that the landscaping and planting around the balancing ponds has not yet been fully implemented as the site remains under development. These works are programmed to be completed in line with the approved plans during the appropriate planting season. The current appearance should therefore be regarded as temporary, and the final landscaping will reflect the approved scheme, and the standards delivered will be comparable to other Gelson developments. Regarding the missing bulb planting and repeated tree failures, it should be noted that bulb planting has not yet been carried out and will be undertaken as part of the remaining landscaping works. With regard to trees, where failures have occurred, replacements will continue to be made in accordance with the applicant's maintenance and aftercare obligations. Tree species and planting methods will be reviewed where necessary to ensure successful establishment, and all planting will be monitored through the agreed maintenance period. Regarding footpath quality and safety concerns, the footpaths within the non-adopted areas are not yet in their final condition. Any sections that do not meet the required standard will be reviewed and remedial works undertaken prior to completion or adoption where applicable. Levels, finishes and safety concerns will be addressed to ensure compliance with construction and safety standards as a matter of priority. Now, just two more points just to address the objections received. This one is insufficient bins leading to overflows. It should be noted that the installation of the dog waste bins across the site has not yet been fully implemented, as the applicants do not currently hold the required license for the removal of dog waste. For this reason, it was felt inappropriate to install all bins at this stage. Full bin provision, including dog waste facilities, will be completed prior to the public open space being transferred to the appointed management company, at which point the necessary arrangements for ongoing servicing and waste removal will be in place. Lastly, the timber rail, the missing timber rail and hedgerow planting, the installation of the timber knee rails and hedgerow planting forms part of the remaining external works. These elements will be delivered prior to completion to ensure boundaries are clearly defined and landscape areas are properly protected in accordance with the approved design. And lastly, just to finish off, if I may, just address the extras report. There was a comment received from a resident just in the last week or so, and it's basically just concerning the responsibility for phase one of the development. And I just think it should be noted that this responsibility is for the first half of the site, which has been completed, but it's been handed over to Truss Green, but ownership of the land has not been transferred to them. Truss Green is currently undertaking maintenance of the open space at a reduced rate for the residents, acknowledging that the open space works have not yet been fully completed. Once all open space works are practically complete, the development will then enter a 12-month maintenance period in accordance with the Section 106 agreement. During this period, the council will have the opportunity to inspect the works, raise any concerns, and identify any remedial works required. It should be noted that the current application relates to the revised landscaping scheme. Maintenance arrangements are not a matter for consideration until the works have been completed, and then the 12-month maintenance period will kick in. Therefore, it's not considered maintenance to be a material factor in determining the revised scheme. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. We now turn to our speakers, the first of who is Miss Anna Griffiths, who is an objector. Yes, please. Do you know how to use the equipment? Oh, well done. Okay, so you have 3 minutes in which to speak. When 1 minute is left remaining, Ms. Dobson will let you know.
Hello, thank you, Chair. I live in Barrow, near the development, have lived in the village for over 20 years, and I really care about it. I'm also a chartered town planner with 30 years experience, and I've dealt with many major housing developments. First thing is, I attended the planning committee when the original 2015 reserved matters application was determined. I remember it clearly as I spoke, highlighting my concerns about the proposed design and layout, particularly the layout of the open space. The decision of the committee at the time was approval, but first they wanted securing a revised plan for the open space that included a full peripheral footpath. This was due to concern about antisocial behaviour behind the Mugger and skate park. A peripheral footpath was the solution to get good all-round visibility of the area and had the extra benefit of creating a good walking route on what would be a clear design line around the site. Sadly, the path that was ultimately approved was only hard surfaced in part, with the bit of the route behind the suds shown as a mown path. A grass mown path is not very visible, less usable in the wet, and not accessible by those with mobility issues or pushchairs. However, at least the approved scheme has a hard surface path looping behind the Mugger, skate park and play equipment. It's disappointing to see what's proposed now. The skate park and Mugger are shown pushed to the far side of the hard surface path, back more towards the edge of the site. The Mugger is in a location somewhat divorced from the other items and now blocks the openness of the site and blocks the natural desire line for walkers around the full site that could have provided important informal supervision. The developers continuing to build contrary to the approved plan, albeit at their risk, is a concern. However, what it does do is highlight the problem and show other problems too. The Mug has been made with planks of wood that are visually intrusive and have limited through visibility to see who's playing on the pitch or who's behind the pitch. A green mesh metal design would be far more appropriate. Preventing crime and disorder and the pursuit of good design are material planning considerations. There are relevant policies within the MPPF and Charnwood Local Plan that could justify refusal of this scheme. I'm aware local children need somewhere to play soon, but it's important for their well-being to get this right. Once built, the problems are there forever. This is the opportunity. I'd ask you please to consider deferring this application to enable an intelligent and comprehensive redesign of this open space, consult on it and bring it back to this committee. With thought, I think it's possible to make a safe, attractive, quality space that addresses all concerns, including noise disturbance for residents. And you could get the peripheral footpath, hard surface behind the equipment and the suds that would benefit all residents. Alternatively, you could insist on implementing the current plan, which is approved, which not ideal, is better than the one before you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Griffiths. Our next speaker is Ward Councillor Fryer, who called in the application. I'm assuming you know how to use the equipment, Councillor Fryer. You have 3 minutes in which to speak, and when you've got 1 minute remaining, Ms Dobson will let you know.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat all the points that Anna has raised. She very thoroughly has gone through the concerns of as councillors for the area and also for the parish council and the residents. I'm sure you've all heard the officer's presentation tonight and also read the reports and concerns in the papers that have come forward for this meeting. I fully support the residents' comments and also those of the parish council. The standard of work on this very large imposing site is very disappointing with regard to the landscaping and planting of trees, bulbs and other plants, particularly when the length of time for this development to be completed is taken into account. The footpaths within the development also have been considered, and as Anna and the others have raised, the highlighted the peripheral path that was expected from the original application cannot be used by many people now due to its surface not being hard. This development is one of the largest in the village, and it is important that all residents have a chance to integrate, and by making it more user-friendly, it would do. This peripheral footpath would be of benefit to everyone, not only the residents of Poppy Fields, but for the village and the people who live in the village. I've lived in Barrow-on-Soar for well over 30 years now, and I would like it to stay as friendly and integrated as possible. I am encouraged by the officer's report as laid out and the presentation he's given. I trust the developers have taken into account. It's disappointing they're not here tonight and will action them in a very timely manner, but ensure they're up to standard. One way and another, it's nearly 16 years since this first idea and application came forward. Let's get it sorted once and for all, but to the highest possible standards and promptly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fryer. I'm now turning to the committee members to ask any questions or make any comments. Councillor Seaton and then Councillor Smithwick.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to this it was a little bit confusing. Reading it, the development should look lovely, the mugger and everything there. I'm listening to it not the standard of work not being what it should be or what it was intended to be on the plans. So what exactly can we do tonight? Can we tell them to hard surface the path properly? I mean, what is open to us to get the developers or the whoever is responsible for finishing that, what is within our power to be able to get them to do, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would direct members to the last two conditions on the report, please. Number 8 is to do with landscaping, and the landscaping, if approved tonight, will be implemented in the first planting season. And after that time, if any tree is damaged or if any tree is diseased or dies, they will be replaced. So with an equivalent tree and plant species. In terms of the maintenance, there is also that condition number 9, which is suggested that to impose a hard and soft landscaping maintenance plan. So this will cover all, guidance and in terms of footpaths and bins, play park machines and other items. So this will ensure that everything is at a good quality and maintained in a good quality as well. And also, I suppose, if approved tonight, then there will also be that 12-month maintenance period where the council can engage with the applicant and also, of course, the residents can engage with the council, and that period can be used to fine-tune any aspects of landscaping or footpath quality, for example, or the number of bins or their placement. All of those combined will ensure that the final development is of a good quality.
Thank you. Thank you for that. For what I'm hearing, though, the work that has been carried out is substandard and not being up to scratch. So you're saying that a maintenance, but maintaining something that's substandard. And you've just said about the pathways, the surface of the pathways. Can we get them to resurface it? If the surface isn't there how it should be, is it within our power to say, right, you need to do this the way it was supposed to? I'm not hearing that. I'm just hearing a maintenance and maintenance from now on, and we'll replace any trees that die. I think that the problems come is because what has been done is substandard and not up to the quality they expected it to be or the way it was presented. But I'm not sure what we can do about that on this application, if you know what I mean.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I walking through the site there, some of the members were there earlier today. and we got off the bus at the northern side of the site and we walked down through the middle to the southern side. I think we were all in agreement, as far as I could tell, that the standard, you know, from the north going down towards the southern side of the site decreased. But as I pointed out in the presentation there, it's the area at the south that, you know, this proposal is hoping to finalise, and these details, these landscaping details, admittedly, it must have been difficult for residents looking out their window on the southern side of the site these last number of years, looking into landscaping that wasn't finished, that wasn't finalised, and now these brief amendments or these small amendments proposed are hoping to tie up all that. And also, I think that the last two conditions they're recommended will, bring it all together and tie it up nicely into a good quality development. And that 12-month period, any issues that residents have or anything that enforcement aren't happy with, or the council, broadly speaking, if they're not happy with the quality, they can, demand that everything is brought up to a satisfactory level.
Can come back, Chair. So if we support that tonight, on paper, will the developers walk through the development with a representative from the parish council or from residents pointing out the snagging areas, the areas that are not up to standard? Will there be that sort of compliance between them, or will they just go ahead willy-nilly and do the bare minimum? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that there'll be no buy-in with the residents and the parish council that have pointed out the deficiency of the development so far. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure that is something that could be arranged once the developer notifies the council that the development is complete and they are satisfied with what they have done. Then that's when the maintenance period will kick in, and I'm sure that certainly could be arranged where members or concerned members of the community, residents, could do that, and there could be a walkthrough of the site where this is that would be the beginning of the 12-month maintenance period, and different things could be brought to the developer's attention, and that would be the beginning of the 12-month process.
Could that be a condition then, please, that the residents or the parish council needs to go through the site with them to start that 12 months off or finish it?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Seaton, Mr. Spring. Yeah, I think in terms of the conditions that are recommended, particularly condition 9 this evening, I think it addresses both areas of concern regarding remedial action. We've heard this evening both from public presentations as well as concern of members of the committee that there appears to be some remedial action required, as well as looking at those maintenance issues. I think the condition as recommended this evening deals with both those issues appropriately. It talks about the relevant facilities. I don't think it would be reasonable and necessary to require a walk around with certain members of the community, but the details that would be submitted through that condition would assist greatly in refining both those remedial actions and maintenance requirements. Thank you, Chair. Hopefully that helps.
Councillor Smidovic.
It was interesting. It's the second time I've been to that site. And as you say, as the officer said, you get off the bus and you walk down and it looks grand. And then the last quarter is frankly a mess. It looks like it's been abandoned. So the only thing that did strike me, apart from the mess, was the structure that the lady mentioned. I remember thinking, I don't like that, but I didn't. it hides the children, and I appreciate it's a protection as well for bouncing balls and what have you. But it does jar the way it's designed with the wood. It just isn't in keeping somehow. Though I think, as I recall, we moved the mugger from the closeness to the railway line, so I can understand they've had to move it once. But if it could be more attractive for that mugger, it would be. I don't know if the officer himself knows what it looks like and would agree or disagree whether it could be changed. But I'd like a time condition on for this whole business to be finished and attractive.
Chair, if I may, yes. I think looking at the condition suite that we've got in front of us this evening, I think condition 4 does require the mugger skate park facility and the play area to be constructed and implemented in full accordance with approved plans, and that be available for use within 6 months of the decision date. So I think we have got a very clear plan and a timescale for that to be implemented, and hopefully that does help and address and allay any concerns. Thank you.
I did enjoy seeing the cat, though, in the badger aspect.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I too was very disappointed, like Councillor Smidovitz. The first part of the walk was almost pleasant. When we got down to that bottom bit where the play area was and that area, it did look like it. It was whoever was working there who just decided to disappear and leave it in a bit of a mess, to be frank. And so I can sympathise with the residents. The point I wanted to make was the point made by the speaker in terms of the path that goes around the outside and not being a hard surface. I'm not sure where the point about it being a grass surface came from. I mean, that's probably long before my time. But certainly if there was a hard surface that ran all the way around the site, that would make a good walking route for people who needed a hard surface. And we all want to get, well, not me, but lots of people want to get their steps in. Frankly, I can't see the point. But the other point is, on a more serious note, the passive monitoring and the active monitoring of the children's play area. The whole thing about active and passive monitoring, it's important, and it's come up in other situations that I've been involved in. The idea that children are playing in a playground and somebody's keeping an eye on them. And if there was a footpath going around the outside, occasionally somebody would walk past that and say, yeah, everything as it is, as it should be. So I just wonder whether or not it would be possible to sort of wind the clock back and reinstate or put in a hard surface footpath around the outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I suppose looking at what's been assessed there, I've just assessed what's being proposed, and this hasn't been part of the proposal, so I didn't assess its possibilities. But perhaps it could be. I mean, this is what the committee is here for. If you insist that you would prefer a hard surfaced path around the Mugga area to extend the walking availability for people using the site, then by all means. But I didn't really assess it as it wasn't part of this proposal. Thank you.
Could I make it a condition, Chair? First for me.
Mr. Spring, can that be made a condition once somebody proposes a list of what we want?
I'd suggest, Chair, having listened to the concerns, that you've probably heard that well-worn phrase or saying, we've got the proposal that's in front of us this evening. So that hasn't been part of the discussion. Just looking at the plans, in detail. I wasn't on site today. Are we looking at the play area that we're talking about? And
We are, yeah.
yeah, okay. So you can see clear that that area has been designed, and I think it's set out within the report as well as Mr. Spring's presentation earlier. There's a path, whether you want to look at it as whatever type of surveillance you want. There is some surveillance there. The open spaces officer is clearly supporting the proposals as set out. There is a mixture there of both the formal facilities. There's also soft landscaping proposals in that area, and the path does have a circular nature. It doesn't go all the way around the outside of the site, but it is a circular nature between the proposed formal facilities. To my mind, I know there'll be an argument, as we've heard, and different viewpoints that we heard in public speaking about the history of the site and what was discussed perhaps 11 years ago or so. But the proposal in front of us this evening has a path which has a circular nature. It's not around the perimeter of the site, but it does invoke users to pass those formal facilities, and is still, I'd suggest, an appropriate walking route. And I'd ask members to consider the proposal in front of us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't agree, but thank you for that.
Councillor Good.
I just really want to echo what Councillor O'Neill says. As somebody who walks with a walking stick, walking on a grass surface is a bit crappy, to be honest. It's not very accessible at all. It seems that if that path did go around the Mugger, then it would be given natural policing. I mean, and we do try and plan that into everything. Just people passing it just seems, I know in the area in my ward, that area would be amazing for people doing not very nice illegal activities. And we're trying to plan extra spiky plants in there so that people aren't going around that area to do things that they're not supposed to be doing. On page 15, number 10, it says about the removal of the approved footpath and around that Mugger. When was that actually removed from the plan? Is that on this one, or was it on a previous meeting when I wasn't part of all of this? Yeah, page 15, number 10.
To the best of my knowledge, this. Okay, all good. Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, that this mode path around the Mugger was part of the approved reserved matters approval. So you know that's already been established, and the items that are in front of us this evening, I named them out and also described them and the reasons for those proposed changes. And there was no change proposed for the mode path to become a hard surface pathway. Okay.
So at some point that path was going round the Mugger, wasn't it though? When did that change?
Okay, thank you, Chair. That the path is still going around, isn't it? It's a mode path. It's just not a hard surface path. It's going around the balancing pond, and it's going around the Mugger area. But to the best of my knowledge, that was already approved in 2015.
So it just hits that corner instead of round. Is that correct?
It's not round the perimeter.
Not round the perimeter.
Is it okay if I ask Mr. Gill to come in on this conversation?
Thank you, Chair. My concern is that you are going off track, members. The fact of the matter is that in order for a condition to be imposed, it has to be necessary. It must be required to make the development acceptable in planning terms. The planning development has taken place and the principle has been established. I think you're now wishing to add whistles and bows to something that you are not in a position to ask for. Mr. Upton has suggested that you deal with the proposal as it's in front of you, and I agree with him. And going back to some of the points that were made about the concerns about making sure that it's done, if you look at those conditions, 8 and 9, they're quite, and even 4, they're quite specific. So within 6 months of the date of this permission being granted, if it is granted, then various plans are to be presented for approval in terms of the remediation work, the landscaping and the ongoing maintenance. And within 6 months, the Mugger and the skate park, etc., are to be available for use. So I concur with Mr. Upton that the conditions are tight. If they're not complied with, then the developer will be in breach, and then the council will be in a position to take action against it. Okay.
I've got Councillor Corey-Losley, then Councillor Bellamy, and then Councillor Smidovic. Councillor Bellamy first.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions. Something we haven't touched on yet is the retaining wall that was constructed, which was, I don't know if that's actually come up in a previous planning discussion, but the way it was described is it was to allow for altering of the landscaping across the site, and was introduced very late in the design stage. Looking at the construction of that, it looked quite low quality, and questioning the officers as we went round, they said that the lifetime of the construction, which was rock inside metal cages, would only be up to about 25 years. Now, my expectation would be something very substantial like that ought to have a longer lifetime. Planting and stuff like that, you can alter. The management team can change planting, and even play areas get rebuilt relatively frequently. But a major part of the finished landscaping like that, I'd have thought it ought to have a lifetime of sort of 50 to 75 years, so that the residents aren't left with an extensive maintenance to do really very soon after the site is finished. So I'm wondering if is that something that can be picked up by building control? I don't know if the quality of that build is something that has been looked at already.
Just come in there, Chair. Those matters will be dealt with by building control. For instance, if there's concerns that the gabion wall is becoming unstable, then they'll be able to use the Building Act, and they'll be able to issue notices that require the works to be done, or works can be done at the council's expense. But building control, and that is a matter that is outside the remit of this committee. You are dealing with planning issues, and concerns about safety, etc., don't fit within the planning regime.
So when will it get resolved? If it's now our job to say that wall is insufficient, I mean, it's stable at the moment, but it's already disintegrating. So it needs repairing, and it's, what, 3 years old, 4 years old? It seems a very poor design. Are we saying that we can't get that design improved before it's handed over to residents because it's already constructed?
The sad reality is, yes, we can't do anything with it. If the wall is dangerous and it's deemed dangerous under the Building Act, then it will be dealt with by the building control surveyors. If the members of the public are concerned that they think that wall is dangerous or imminently dangerous, then they need to report it through to building control, and the building control, the surveyor, will go and have a look at it. With the greatest respect to the planners and lawyers, we're not surveyors. And whilst it might appear to you to be looking unsafe, it needs a qualified surveyor to determine whether that is the case or not. And then if they do determine, there are various options. They can require the work to be done in a programmed way by serving a particular form of notice, or if they consider it to be immediately dangerous, they can go to the court and get an order and do the works themselves. So there's 2 approaches to it.
And who would be responsible for the costs if it is very quickly found to be unsafe?
If it was found to be unsafe and the council decided that they were going to do the works because of the danger, then the landowner or the owner of the wall will be liable for the costs. and those costs will be dealt with as a contract debt through the county court.
Do we know who the ongoing ownership might be? We know it's the developer at the moment, but will it be transferred to the management company? Is that something we're aware of?
Thank you. I have no knowledge about this going forward. My assumption is it will go to the management company. If the land is transferred to the management company becomes responsible. It may be that the developer actually only employs the management company to maintain the land and retains ownership of the land itself. So at some point in time, when there is an issue with that wall, somebody will do a land registry search and that will dictate who the owner of that land is.
Okay, thank you very much on that question. Got one further one on the path. I've been assuming that the path that we're talking about is the one that wiggles through between the mugger and the play area. But people talked about a path that also goes around the sud around the periphery.
I think Mr. Spring has already said that all of the alterations have been agreed in 2022, so that really we're just catching up on the stuff that hasn't been done or is not done to the standard to which we would expect it to be.
So the only path is the one shown on here that just loops down a very short distance and goes through the play area, which is going to be.
I believe that's already been agreed 4 years ago. Am I right?
Yes, Chair.
So that's where we're not here to add on to anything that's already in the report. We're just questioning or commenting on anything that we don't understand, or there seems to be an opening for a question that needs to be answered. Thank you. Councillor Smidovic.
I was just going to move officer's recommendation and take paragraph 8 and 9 into account.
Councillor Boker.
I think that was my original question. What's in our power? What can we do? And it wasn't anything. It's just the condition 8 and 9 would sort it all out. So that's what's within our power. It's not within our power to resurface the path because it's already been agreed. We can't just go away and say, well, actually, it's not a good design. We need it something, we need it designed, because hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? But it's something that it's not within our power today and not necessary. So whatever one of us seconds it, we've seconded it.
Councillor Corey-Loseley.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Smidovic put me to the post there. I was going to do that as well. What I was also going to say is it's a shame that the applicant's not here tonight. I was looking forward to hearing from them and seeing what their interpretation of the situation was going to be. So it's disappointing they aren't here. I was also going to say, as members have already said, this application, or this approval of this application puts impetus on them to actually do something about it. I wasn't on site today, but I've seen the pictures, and it's a terrible mess, and it's a real shame that they've left it like that. It's very disappointing. So I'm glad that we're able to put some pressure on them to do something about it, and with a fixed time scale as well. I'm very pleased to see that. And next time, you know, it's just disappointed that they haven't come to tell us about it. Next time we have an application from Gelson, I shall remember this one. Finally, I was just going to very quickly ask, and I'm sure this probably is covered in the pack, isn't it? Are there any plans for adoption on this, or is it going to be kept in management in perpetuity?
So thank you, Chair. So when the developer relays to the council that they're happy with the final quality of the development and they have, you know, done everything according to the approved plans, if approved this evening, then that's when they will hand it over to the management company. They have handed it over to Trust Green, but the ownership of the land hasn't been transferred. Whether they're going to do that at that stage, no, I'm not sure. But in terms of the responsibility for the maintenance for the first part of the proposal, that responsibility is currently with Trust Green. And then once this final elements that I've described this evening, once they're completed, then that responsibility to Trust Green will increase for the whole site. And that's when, as mentioned, the maintenance plan will be kicking in.
Okay, so for the foreseeable, it's not going to be, you know, the highways and whatever won't be handed over to the county. No. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So if there are no more comments, we've had a proposal and a seconder for accepting officer's recommendation plus any amendments or comments in the extras report. All those in favour? Yeah, 7. All those against? Any abstentions? 4.
So on that basis, Chair, the motion is approved 7-4 and 4 abstentions.
Thank you. Right, you think it's time to go home, but you're wrong. Because we now have item 6, the list of applications determined under delegated powers. At the back of your agenda. Does the committee have any questions or comments on that list? Did you just put your hand up, Councillor Seaton? No. I've not said we've finished the meeting. We've not finished the meeting yet, Councillor Seaton. Maintain your decorum. So if there are no further comments, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.